forgiveness be my sword. Lord, make me a means of your peace.
Peace and goodness, dear friends in Christ. We've come your way once again with your favorite and insightful program, Voices from the Valley. Tell the friend and tell the other friend as well that Voices from the Valley is on. That they can equally join us on our social media handles, on Facebook, Cafdil Cape Coast, and on YouTube, Cafdil EDU. What do we have to share today? Let's take a break, and when we return, we will introduce our theme for today. Welcome back from the break. In this Jubilee year of St. Francis of Assisi, we've been hearing some themes relating to our Franciscan identity and tradition. Today we would want to bring to you one of the Franciscan symbols and insignia which relates to St. Francis of Assisi and our Franciscan spirituality. To my right here is an interesting cross, which definitely you might have seen with Franciscans, but definitely again you wouldn't understand what it entails, its origin, and what its name is. And that is what we would want to learn so that we would appreciate it anytime we find it in use in chapels or elsewhere. So to help us do this is one of our own friars who is always ready to share his voice with you. So Friar, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Maybe you could remind the audience of your name again.
Okay, peace and goodness to you all. May the Lord fill you with his peace. So my name is Friar Moses Kabala Arthur. I am here in the Franciscan Valley of Prayer and Silence, and I help with the formation of novices. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Friar.
Yes.
So, in this Jubilee of St. Francis of Assisi, we often find Franciscans associated with this cross or crucifix or this, we say, image. Help us to understand what this is all about.
Okay, in Catholic theology, spirituality, and especially in art, Catholic art, we call them icons. So it's an icon of Jesus crucified. It is called the San Damiano cross. San Damiano because this cross was in the church of San Damiano, downside of Assisi. So the church of St. Damian, it was inside that church that this cross was. And it's a very, very significant cross for us Franciscans, because we could say all the life of the Franciscan movement, at least as it is interpreted by others, begins right from this cross. Of course, what we have here is a replica of the actual San Damiano cross, which at the moment hangs in the Basilica of St. Clare in Assisi, Italy.
Okay, so this is San Damiano cross, as you rightly said, a cross which was in the church of Saint Damian.
Saint Damian, or San Damiano in Italian, if you want, yeah.
Per our Christian practice, is this another cross different from the cross that we are normally used to?
Okay, so as I said, so in Christian iconography, the doing of paintings or sculptures, there are many different kinds of crosses that are proposed for us. And this is surely one cross. So for those, and normally they were monks who were doing this kind of work, for each icon that was done, there was a message that that cross carried along. So this is an icon that depicts the crucifixion of Jesus put on wood. And even at a glance, you would know that normally the crosses we find in churches has the figure of Jesus crucified. But here there are a lot of figures, a lot of them, and all of them put together wants to communicate a message that the original painter wanted to give to us. Unfortunately, we don't have access to the original person who did it, but we are looking at the beginning of the 1100s. So we are looking at about close to a century before the birth of Christ, or close to a century before this thing became famous. What was famous about, maybe I want to anticipate what you might already ask, is that from this cross, Francis heard those words, "Francis, go and repair my church, which as you see is falling into ruins." And from this message, Francis began doing something. But maybe we can take the passes a little bit behind to be able to understand what is happening here.
Yeah.
So practically, Francis wanted to be a great knight, and he wanted to go to war in Perugia. At Spoleto, he had a dream about an armory, a mansion with a lot of armor, swords, shields, etc. And he asked, but to whom do these armaments belong? And he was said, to you, of course, you and your knight. So he understood that he was going to be a great knight. He was going to be victorious. Then he had another dream, another vision, in which he was asked, but whom do you want to serve? The master or the servant? And then he responded, the master, of course. Then he said, then what are you doing here? So he would ask, but what should I do? And then the voice tells him, go back to Assisi. And a lot was not going on well, even relationship with his father, etc. And one time we are told he entered the church of St. Damian. It was a bit dilapidated, to just go and pray. And there he heard the voice from this cross telling him, Francis, go and repair my church, which as you see is falling into ruins. Now, this collaborates also with another legend of the Pope who had had a dream of the Lateran Basilica. At that time, there was no Vatican yet. Yeah. The Lateran Basilica, the cathedral of the Pope, which was falling into ruin, and a young man, a hermit, was the one holding it up. And it turned out that when Francis came to him to come and ask for permission to start the movement to preach peace and penance, he recognized in Francis the man who was holding the church. But already Francis had been restoring church, because when he heard the message, he understood that he should go around restoring churches. So San Damiano, then Portiuncula, Rivototo, he was repairing concretely churches that were in ruins. It will be later that he will understand that it was not about churches of blocks, but churches that are living stones that he was called to repair.
Wow, that is already much information that we've had so far. And I want to believe you are writing some things down. And even as friars or as parents, we may have read something elsewhere, but it could be a moment of revision for sure. That is the novice master who is speaking information. Always gives those. Thank you so much up until now. So we have seen how this cross came to relate to St. Francis of Assisi and the beginnings of his life. Francis went there to pray. He wanted enlightenment as to whatever was happening. As Christians, as Catholics, with the appreciation of holy images, especially with the crucifix or the cross of Jesus Christ, how well should we incorporate this in our own spirituality?
Now, the spirituality we have is an incarnated spirituality. The Christianity we have, the religion we have, is an incarnated religion. We have God who is invisible, who is inaccessible, Word that now has become flesh. He has become one of us. So we are able to access God because He has made Himself now accessible. Then the Word now becomes flesh. We have the Eucharist. So all of these give us opportunity. So yes, the Old Testament, the Jews had the law that says that they should not make graven images. But we know in the New Testament that Jesus is the image of the invisible God. So all of these images, they help us to enter into God Himself, who has entered into our own humanity, into our own realm, showing Himself as visible, touchable. We can even eat Him, we can touch Him, we can encounter Him. And if you take your time to explain this, then you will come to realize that the same understanding is here. So a picture of Mary, a statue of Saint Anthony, all of these things, they help us to enter into the mystery of the invisible. But we use the visible to move because God knows that we cannot enter there by ourselves. So He has become incarnate in Jesus. And all of these images, icons or statues, all of these, they connect to Christ, who is actually the image of the invisible God.
So Francis went there and he was able to connect with God and received the direction of whatever he wanted to understand. But we realize that this icon is not common. It's not something which is common. But we only see it with Franciscans and maybe churches where Franciscans are. Isn't it different from what we normally have in our parishes?
Of course, it's dramatic renewal embraced it as their official symbol. So you see a lot more people wearing the Tau cross. But the San Damiano cross, you see here and there people wearing it. But it's something specifically for us Franciscans because of the message it carries for us. And it's absolutely different from anything you would be able to see as far as the crucifixion is concerned. Most crosses you would see, they are a representation of the death of Jesus. Here, there is no death here.
Okay.
Here, it is actually a triumphant Jesus that is presented here. If for nothing at all, whoever looks at it will see Jesus with his eyes widely opened. That already should tell us something. In most crosses, his head is bowed down because he is dead. But here is a victorious Jesus that is presented to us. And that already makes us understand that it is not a regular cross the way we would know. But it is something dear to us because this spoke to Francis, so it speaks to us. And that repairing of the church, it has gone on for 800 years and it is still going on. And you have to come to appreciate the fact that up to 30, 40 years ago, this was the only thing we knew about the conversion of Francis. As far as Francis of Assisi and his mission was concerned, he came from the fact that the crucifix spoke to him, or at least Francis heard the voice coming out of the crucifix, and everything else as far as the Franciscan movement flows from there. It's only, as I was saying, the past 30, 40 years that research into the writings of Francis himself, because this is narrated by his biographies, in the past years when we have gone to discover the writings of Francis himself, that we come to read in his testament that when Francis interprets his life, he sees the encounter with the lepers as really the turning point. But for us, for the biographers and for centuries, the understanding was this. It was the cross speaking to Francis, go and repair my church. That was the Franciscan movement, and that has guided us. Now we come to understand more that it was the same Christ who led him, as Francis himself will narrate, to go and embrace the leper, and then from there everything else followed. So there is the interpretation that the biographies and the centuries have given to the experience of Francis and his conversion, and then there is the interpretation that Francis himself gives of his own experience. So bit by bit, now we talk a lot about the gospel life. The Franciscan life is about the life of the gospel. So going and following after Jesus, who came rich as he was, he became poor so that he might make us rich. So we also follow to become poor to make the world rich. But coming back to this, it is a valid icon, but it is not out there because it is something within our own Franciscan circles. And you will not ordinarily find it in a church that is not a Franciscan, because it is something very, very dear to us, and it is not something that has come. But it could be also something that is really promoted. But if a person doesn't also understand all the symbols that are on it, then you can have a treasure also, but you don't really come to appreciate that treasure well.
Okay. So given, as you made mention of in sacred art, in icons and iconography, this is a different depiction of mysteries of our faith. And so this must have come from a different tradition as far as the church tradition is concerned. Now, I know of it also being called the Byzantine cross, which means it came from
the eastern part of the church. So the church, we have the Latin rite, then the Orthodox rite, the eastern part of the church. And there they were more into icons, more than to the western part. The western part were more for the statutes. So it is a Byzantine cross, and from the eastern, so most probably the monk who put it together might have been influenced by that spirituality, or who knows, maybe he was even from there.
I was asking this when we were discussing this, the Tau cross and other Franciscan insignia. It's more or less like Franciscans always have something, and it makes you like you always want to identify yourself with something unique and you stand out. For instance, as I made mention, like in parishes, even under the patronage name of St. Francis of Assisi Parish, or barely will you find like a cross like this or an icon like this there. And so it's, as for you, you always do something which makes you different, or
I think we can go back to Francis of Assisi himself. By 1215, at the Fourth Lateran Council, it was decided that there will be no new rules for religious orders that are coming up. So whichever religious order comes up will have to take the existing rules that were there of St. Benedict, of St. Augustine, St. Basil. And Francis was given an exception because in 1208, 9, 10, there, he had already gone to the Pope asking for approval of the fraternity he had. They were about 12. The Pope gave a verbal confirmation, a verbal approval for them. Then he said, go, when you grow, you would come back, and then you are given now a definitive approval. So in fact, the rule that comes in 1223, it is not a new rule that is done, but it is a rule that has already been approved, and then this time it is confirmed. Of course, it is expanded a bit. So when it was insisted with Francis, why don't you take one of those which are already existing? His answer was clear. I am a new fool that God has set into the world to bring something new. And he was convinced of this, and he suffered for it, but he was glad also that God could use him to bring something new. So his companion, Dominic, took the rule of Augustine. We didn't. We have our own rule. Now, among the rules in the church, there's also the rule of St. Francis. So the newness and then the innovation was really with Francis himself, because it was the Spirit at work bringing this newness and this freshness. So we have all these special things because God gave them, not because we invented them, but God gave them. Even I'm sure it was explained already, but the Tau cross, Francis went, he heard from the book of Ezekiel, and he was convinced that this should be my own, and he took it up.
Yeah. Again, more information. Celebrating 800 years, the spirit of renewal, innovation, and novelty is still with St. Francis and his spirituality. And so as we celebrate this year, do not be afraid of newness in life, because that is the only thing that we always look out for. So, Father, you walk us through. It's like we are thirsted for what is all these things about. You just walk us through the theology behind, and with this pointer, I think it will help to get actually what it entails.
Now, there are a lot of things to say, so I would run through, at least take an overview, and then after we'll try to see what to say. First thing to notice is the border. So all the way from here going all the way around, all the way up to the end here, we see these are shells. So now we who are by the sea, we know this. Yeah. In the ancient world, shells represent eternity, because they are there, they are always there. So it's a life that here, eternal life is being presented to us. Already you see down here that there are no shells here. So there is an opening for us to enter into this eternity. And it is something beautiful to come to think about. Now, we want to stay with the figure of Jesus for now, and then maybe subsequently, because there are a lot of things we could say about the figure of Jesus here. As I said, first of all, we are looking at a triumphant Jesus. So Jesus who has won victory over death. The marks of the crucifixion you can see even the side. So he is indeed crucified. The Lamb who was slain but is alive. He is victorious. And victory is seen, first of all, in this, normally is supposed to be a halo. When we put the saint, we put the halo. But here, it is really a crown. And I don't know if the camera is able to zoom, and you will see there are pearls that are put inside this crown. So jewelries that are inside to let understand that this is really royalty that is being presented to you, like we find in the book of the Apocalypse, all of these precious stones that decorate the city of God. Another thing, if you pay attention to this icon, is to see that the face, the area of the face and all the shell is somehow dimmed compared to the body. So you see that the brightness on the chest of Jesus is not the same in the face. Why? Because it is understood that there is a veil covering the face of Jesus. So, of course, as it was done of Moses, a veil covers his face. But we are able to access the the face of God, not covered. With uncovered faces, we are able to assess the glory of God. But as it stands now, it was only at the transfiguration that the apostles had a glimpse. We will have that glimpse, the fullness of it in eternity. But as it stands now, this is a triumphant Jesus telling us that the face is already dim. There's a veil there. There's something more to see. But even still, we can see that his eyes are open. So he's the one who sees. He's the one who is able to understand. He sees you. He understands you. He knows you. He knows what is happening to you. And if you are able to gaze upon him like the others are doing, you would be able to have your eyes meeting his eyes, and a lot of things can take place. Now, still staying with the figure of Jesus, there's first of all the vestments. So it's a linen ephod, that is a linen garb, if you say, that is tied around his waist. If you remember David, when he danced before the Lord, he had also a linen cloth that led even the wife Micah to despise her. But this was the dress of priest. So Jesus as a priest, the high priest. And here you can't really see from here, but all of these trappings on the edges, and even we can say the rope, the cincher that holds the linen cloth together, they are gold trappings. So it is a priest of royalty that is offering himself to the Father. And here we enter also into the fact that we have an icon of the Trinity. First, there is this circle at the lower stomach of Jesus. A circle is a symbol of eternity. It represents the eternal Word. So the Son of God, who from eternity was God. On top of it, there is the figure of a kind of a head that represents the Father. And all the way to the head of Jesus, if you look well, you will find the figure of a dove, the Holy Spirit. This is the Trinity, because in Jesus dwells the fullness of divinity, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.
It's interesting what we are learning so far. And you see, there is still more to be able to understand from even just the figure of Jesus. How much more these friends who are here. Okay, let's go on.
Okay. Now, so of course, the scene is the scene of the crucifixion, even though we are talking about Jesus who is triumphant over death. So at the crucifixion, then look also at the proportions of the figures. So the figure of Jesus compared to those at the foot of the cross, they are actually under his arms. So we are understanding the embrace of the hands of Jesus to all. And we have here Mary, the mother of Jesus, John, the beloved disciple, Mary Magdalene, Mary, mother of James, and then we have the centurion. Okay, the Gospels tell us about these figures. Now, for each one of them and the colors of their clothes, they have already a lot to say, but maybe we can't go into all of those details. Of course, these are things that for the generation of the Z, the Gen Zs, and those who use social media, when you go and search for it, San Damiano Cross, you can find even more details. So here are they, those at the foot of the cross. We have also here two smaller figures. This one is dressed like a soldier, so we are looking at a Roman, most probably also a centurion. And this, with the knee tilted, they are all one way or the other gazing at Jesus. So this is not a Roman, this is a Jew. And of course, it means that it is being communicated to us that the Romans and the Jews, pagans and Jews together, were the ones who actually called for the death of Jesus. But if you see their sizes here, what the painter, the one who made the icon, want to communicate to us is that they are irrelevant here. No one takes my life, Jesus says. I lay it down myself. So we can say that, yes, it was the Jews and the Romans together who connived to have Jesus put to death. Even Pilate knew that he should not condemn him, but he did so. But when it comes to the bigger global picture of the icon, you realize that they are really insignificant. What is instead important is to get to understand that Jesus himself gave his life. Down here we have the rooster. So the cock that crowed, we know what it stands for. They were the alarm clock. They will tell us that the day has begun. So they tell us about the rising of the sun. Jesus is the sun that rises. And we can see all the brightness on him as far as this icon is concerned. Under the hands of Jesus, so we see all the blood that flows, and we see angels. I mean, they talk to each other, conversing about all of this mystery. We have other angels also gazing upon. It's like as if these ones have already looked at and they are now talking about it. These ones are still contemplating it. And the letter to Peter says, the matters that has to do with the crucifixion of Jesus, etc. The angels even long to enter into it, to understand something of it. This is what is happening here. Then going up, so there is the writing that we find always on the head of Jesus. But we have Jesus who is ascending to the Father, because we are talking Jesus is the one who is triumphant. So he's ascending to the Father. You can see even the air that is blowing the cloth array. And there are all these angels who are ready to welcome him. And right at the highest point, we see the finger of the Father who is ready to welcome him, giving assent to the victory that Jesus has won through the cross, that he has, through it, given victory to us. Down here, there are also some figures, but because of kissing the cross and veneration, you can't really see them. There are only two that we can have a glimpse of it, but at least a little bit of an introduction to this. And so once we come to contemplate it, we should keep in mind that there's so much to do, but the center really and the attraction is Jesus. Then all the others have meaning because of the presence of Jesus. And if we remember, we could conclude with this. We are told that Jesus, when he heard the voice, he really wanted to do what he was asked, and he prayed, "Most high, glorious God, enlighten the darkness of my heart, and give me, Lord, a correct faith, a certain hope, perfect charity, sense and knowledge, so that I might know and do your holy command." The very command he had it. He needed faith, hope, and charity to be able to put it into action.
Wow, thank you so much. And with just this prayer, we'll share it with you so that you could equally personalize it in moments when you would want to find your feet in your own way of life as a Christian, that God will enlighten you. Approaching holy images like the crucifix, like the San Damiano cross, asking for God's enlightenment in your life, young men discerning vocations, people discerning partners in life. The church has this tradition for us. And with all the explanation, I think Father Moses may have to come back again, because there are still some small details that I'm sure you see, which we will need to just to understand, to complete and appreciate more the San Damiano cross and what the Franciscans are trying to share with the world. Thank you once again. And to you, my dear viewers, let us stay tuned, catching each other on Voices from the Valley. It has been an insightful moment. Let us enjoy the insights that we've learned so far, and let us see each other once again. peace and goodness.
means of your peace.
Prayer for the Jubilee year of St. Francis of Assisi. Saint Francis, our brother, you who 800 years ago went to meet Sister Death as a man at peace, intercede for us with the Lord. In the crucifix of San Damiano, you recognized true peace. Teach us to seek in him the source of all reconciliation that breaks down every wall. You who, unarmed, crossed the lines of war and misunderstanding, give us the courage to build bridges where the world erects borders. In this time plagued by conflict and division, intercede so that we may become peacemakers, unarmed and disarming witnesses of the peace that comes from Christ. Amen.
Lord, make me a means of your peace. Lord, grant me to seek and to share, to forgive in thee, you've forgiven me, for to die in thee is eternal life to me. Lord, make me